In 1993 we got Jurassic Park, a visual spectacle that would revolutionize the way we perceive a big summer blockbuster. As well as getting 2 sequels, in 2015 we got Jurassic World, and just recently it also got a sequel. Which of the 2 movies is superior? We are about to find out. Let the battle commence. After 22 years, Jurassic Park is finally open and has been rebranded Jurassic World. Everyone seems to be enjoying themselves, however, people just aren't as captivated in dinosaurs as they used to be. So the CEO of the company decides that they should create a brand new dinosaur that will take everyone by surprise and re-energize their interest in this extinct and dated species. However, in a shocking turn of events, the new dinosaur manages to escape from captivity and goes on a killing spree. From here, it is up to our characters to kill this monster and prevent it from leaving the island. And the story for Jurassic World 2 is that the island containing the dinosaurs, Isla Nublar, has a volcano that is going to erupt and destroy the entire land. This has got the attention of many animal rights activists who are demanding the dinosaurs be saved. Ian Malcolm, however, says that the real dinosaurs were extinct and died. These are just artificial animals created in a lab and therefore should be left to die as nature originally intended. He says this much to the dismay of some people in the court and much to the dismay of our returning character, Claire. She is trying to raise awareness and put a campaign together so the dinosaurs can be saved from their demise. As she's doing this, she gains the attention of Eli Mills, who says that he can get the dinosaurs off the island with her and Owen's help. We soon find out, however, that Mills has his own agenda to sell the dinosaurs for profit and doesn't care about saving them. From here, our characters try their hardest to save the dinosaurs and prevent Mills from weaponizing and selling them off. Now right off the bat, I really liked how the first Jurassic World ingeniously manages to present the park and make it so immersive, exciting, and very comparable to real-life theme parks with elements from zoos and farms. This is what I always thought Jurassic Park should have looked like, as opposed to the boring park in the first movie. It really is amazing how they managed to so realistically bring the park to life. What's more, I downright love the movie's social commentary that highlights people's microscopic attention spans and their tendency to very quickly lose interest in everything, even something as amazing and awe-inspiring as frickin' dinosaurs. And seeing as Jurassic World is a business, the higher-ups decide to combat this by making a bigger, stronger, and scarier super dinosaur in the hopes to revitalize people's attention spans. And this acts as a solid and really well thought out origin and motivation for creating the Indominus Rex. A business needs to innovate in order to stay relevant and keep its customers coming, and the movie acknowledges that. And this is practically identical to what Universal Studios is doing to us with this movie. The higher-ups, that being the filmmakers, made a bigger and stronger super dinosaur in the hopes of revitalizing our attention spans. So I gotta give credit where credit is due. The filmmakers of Jurassic World wanted to incorporate a new dinosaur, and they managed to very smartly write it into the story in a very plausible and convincing manner, while simultaneously justifying its existence with social commentary. And the twist that the Indominus Rex was a combination of a T-Rex and Velociraptor really took me by surprise, and I did not see it coming. Now Jurassic World 2 has been given a different director, and right from the movie's opening, the tone is completely different and more intense. And this is further illustrated when the T-Rex shows up. Not only does this set it apart from the first Jurassic World, but it pretty much establishes itself as more of a horror movie. And I really like this new approach in atmosphere, as tonally it's doing its own thing, while simultaneously feeling a lot closer in spirit to the tone of the first movie. Additionally, the moral and political elements of how people now perceive dinosaurs as endangered species is actually intriguing, whereas in The Lost World, it just wasn't. But in Jurassic World 2, I actually felt for the dinosaurs in several scenes. So from a storytelling perspective, I feel like care was taken with these 2 movies. I remember back when the concepts of these films were just rumors. I thought the idea of trained raptors and military dinosaurs was so stupid, but they surprisingly made it plausible, and it didn't feel silly or too over the top. And I know this because I watched it the entire time with a straight face. Unfortunately though, Jurassic World 2 is plagued with a lot of narrative and story-based problems. With regards to narrative problems, the main one is that the movie does a poor job at implementing its 3-act structure. It has a first act, and then a very long second act, which also acts as the third act. This makes the film's conclusion feel very sudden and abrupt. Not to mention the horrendously flawed execution of the ending, which delivers such a negative impact that I actually made a whole video dedicated to it. And as for story problems, I could talk about these all day, but the biggest one is that our characters seem to think that the only solution for saving these dinosaurs is by bringing them to our habitat. But they never think to transport them from Isla Nublar, where the volcano is erupting, to Isla Sorna. You know, the island in Jurassic Park 2 and 3.
I have never been on this island.
Sure you have. You wrote that book.
That was Isla Nublar. This is Isla Sorna. Site B.
You mean there are 2 islands with dinosaurs?
I remember watching the scene as a kid, and it blew my mind that there were not 1, but 2 islands that contain dinosaurs. And throughout this movie, they keep talking about Isla Nublar, but they never make any mention of Isla Sorna. I mean, are the writers of this movie deliberately ignoring it? If they made mention to it and gave us reasons as to why they can't transport the dinosaurs there, then I would have accepted it. But they don't even make reference to it, even though they ironically make countless references to the previous Jurassic Park films. You know, the stuff that really matters. But yeah, all the stuff I've mentioned is what ultimately holds the story of Fallen Kingdom back from being as good as it could have been. So the movie with the superior story by far is the first Jurassic World. Now, Jurassic World is the first Jurassic Park movie to not include any of the main characters from the original cast. The only returning member we get is Dr. Henry Wu from the first movie, who has been recruited to create the Indominus Rex. And I liked his inclusion. He played a necessary part in the story, and he didn't just show up for a pointless callback to the original. They did, however, very lazily throw him into Jurassic World 2, and he was essentially given the same role as he was in the first Jurassic World, except not anywhere near as well thought out. As for our main characters, let's start with Owen. Now, the first time I saw him in the trailer for Jurassic World, I was like, oh god, I really hope Chris Pratt is not just playing Star-Lord again.
These animals are thinking, I gotta eat, I gotta hunt, You gotta be able to relate to at least one of those things.
But when I saw the film, I was surprised to find out that that was the only Star-Lord-like joke he does in the entire movie. He actually plays the character seriously, and he's also a badass. And this couldn't be showcased any better than when he was training the Velociraptors. I remember seeing these scenes in the trailers, and I thought it looked so stupid. But in the movie, not only does it work, it's also very intriguing and different. Owen has imprinted himself on the raptors when they were born, but that doesn't mean they immediately listen to his every command. They will still eat him if he isn't careful, and as well as making their encounters nerve-wracking, it puts them more in line with animals that you can't fully train. So I thought the implementation of the raptors was really smart, and this carries through wonderfully into Fallen Kingdom. Chris Pratt really does own these scenes, and after having seen them several times, it is still so cool to watch. From an acting point of view, he really does sell the absurd idea that you can tame and have a mutual and respectable relationship with a dinosaur. And not just any dinosaur, a Velociraptor, the most smart and insane of the franchise. So I thought they did a great job with the character of Owen, as he was established very well and had plenty of potential to grow. And then we have Claire. Now, when she is first introduced, she exhibits a very stiff and corporate personality. Now, as well as managing the business side of the park, she has also been given the responsibility of taking care of her sister's kids. And the movie tries its best to showcase Claire as being an uncaring aunt who spends more time with her job than she does her own nephews. Now, when I first saw this movie, I foolishly fell victim to his Hollywood manipulation, as I pretty much immediately disliked her as the movie wanted me to. She's passing her nephews off who she hasn't seen in years and is leaving them with someone who clearly doesn't want to be there. But really, when you look at the reality and not through the manipulative Hollywood perspective, she has a job to do and multiple presentations to prepare for, and despite this, her sister, who is going through a divorce, is dumping her kids on Claire to take care of while she sorts out her own divorce proceedings. You clearly see throughout the first quarter of the movie that she is on the clock. She doesn't even have time to talk to them right here, but she does. Not to mention that she gives them free passes to the rides and to all the food they want, and she says that she'll see them in the evening, meaning until then, they've practically got it made in this luxury park. And then later on, the mother suddenly starts crying that she's not spending time with them, despite the fact that she has to manage and help maintain the whole launch of this park. I really hate this emotional manipulation that Hollywood tries to cram into their movies, and I feel so stupid for having fallen for it the first time. The only thing I can kind of hold her to is that she doesn't even know the age of her nephews, and I like how Chris Pratt's character tells her that.
He's a few years...
You don't know how old your nephews are?
Speaking of the little brats, it's time to talk about Claire's nephews, Zach and Gray. Now, a lot of people really seem to hate these kids. I personally didn't like them that much, but I definitely didn't hate them. Their scenes with the dinosaurs don't hold a candle to the kids in the first Jurassic Park, but as additional side characters, I thought they were fine. That, however, is a sentiment that I don't share for the two side characters in Fallen Kingdom. I mean, these two got on my nerves from the very beginning. One is the obnoxious comic relief, and the girl. She was a bloody embarrassment. There was one scene in particular where Blue gets shot and captured and Owen gets shot with a tranquilizer. She shows up and tries to act all strong by sticking up for Owen and points a gun at them, and then she willingly goes with them and leaves him knocked out, paralyzed, and helpless on the ground. On an island with man-eating dinosaurs and an erupting volcano, and both actually make their way to him and he almost died. She really pissed me off in that scene, and that was the final straw that made me completely hate her as an overall character. Everything else was just the icing on the cake. And then we also have the corporate douchebag villain of the movie. Now if you thought the sort of villain from the first movie was bad, then you will be surprised to find out that this guy is so much worse. There is not one thing he did that took me by surprise, and there is not a single good thing I can say about him. The movie wants you to hate him, and you do. You end up hating him for all the usual cliches a corporate slimy business character does. But he doesn't have a single original character trait of his own. He is the very definition of a textbook villain, and calling him safe would be an understatement. This movie also had the audacity to make multiple I made it jokes. There were only like 2 good jokes in this movie, but the rest sucked. Now I haven't talked about both Claire and Owen's relationship in this movie, so now I'm going to. Like I said earlier, the corporate villainous douchebag says to Claire that he is going to save the dinosaurs and take them off the island. But in order to take Blue off the island, he needs Owen to come and get her trust so they can safely capture her. So Claire goes to find Owen, and despite the fact that the first movie ended with them both getting together, the second movie pretty much immediately tells you that they broke up because of a van. I really wish I was making that up, and this is meant to be an attempt at comedy. Only it wasn't funny because guess what? They had a very similar conversation in the first movie. That's right, this encounter of theirs in Fallen Kingdom is exactly the same. And then in next to no time, Chris Pratt ultimately decides to join the expedition after watching some videos of when he was training Blue, as well as the fact he doesn't want Claire to get hurt. Now let me tell you what I would have done, and feel free to tell me what you think. Jurassic World 2 is based 4 years after the first film, right? So wouldn't it have been so much better if this movie said that Claire and Owen were married? This way, when Claire wants to go save the dinosaurs from the island, there is already a perfectly understandable reason for Owen to come to the island with her, even if he disagrees, as she is not his friend or girlfriend, she is his wife, and he feels he has a responsibility to look after and protect her regardless of her viewpoint. It would advance the characters in a different direction from the first movie, and it would feel like they have actually developed and maybe even learned from one another. This is what you call a character arc, but nope, instead they go with a typical will they, won't they relationship. How many times have we seen this typical Hollywood tripe before? I'll tell you when. In the last movie. In Jurassic World 1 I could give it some leeway as it was establishing characters, so there's some wiggle room in that direction. Jurassic World 2 however practically resets their relationship back to what it was in the first film, and it's so frustrating because it's such a wasted opportunity. Now both Chris Pratt and Bryce Dallas Howard do as good a job as they can with their acting abilities to have natural conversations and interactions, but the script and direction doesn't give them much to work with, and you need both to make for good and memorable character development. We also have this dumb little girl as a new character, and if you want to know what I think of her stupid final decision at the end of the movie and her bullshit excuse, then check out my video where I talk about the movie's ending. All I will add is that there is a subplot towards the end of the movie which is presented as a big reveal, and it tells us that this little girl is a clone. What did this add to the movie? Absolutely nothing. It made no sense, it got no resolution, and quite frankly, if you're going to give us a pointless and absurd subplot like that, then you better do something with it. But the movie doesn't, it just ends soon after. And when you take into account where the movie ends, is it even necessary to have a subplot like this going into the next film? As for good character interactions, I loved the scenes where we see Blue and Owen's relationship, particularly when he was training Blue as a kid. And it's in this scene you notice that Blue has a hint of complexity to him. And seeing as the Velociraptors are some of the more intelligent kinds of dinosaurs, this makes sense and works very well. But yeah, out of the 2 films, the first movie understood character a lot more, and I left the film really liking them. Whereas Jurassic World 2 didn't continue their development, it didn't advance any of the characters' relationships, and it did a horrendous job at giving us new characters, who we were forced to spend way too much time with. So the movie with the superior characters is the first Jurassic World. Now aside from the usual dinosaurs we have come to expect from this franchise, Jurassic World gives us a new one, the Indominus Rex. And I really have to applaud the idea of creating a hybrid dinosaur out of 2 of the most popular dinosaurs of the franchise. I also like that it gets to use its hands as well as its teeth. They even came up with a logical reason to give it its camouflaging ability. Since it was a hybrid, it was created using strands of DNA from other animals in order to stay together, and it was an absent-minded side effect that happened to work in its favor. And little visual details such as the blood on the dinosaur's teeth, and if you look really closely, little chunks of dead bodies, was a nice little attention to detail. And the action scenes involving the raptors was also pretty badass, and in this scene, there was a large sense of uncertainty and doubt as to whether or not this team-up was fully going to work. Even Owen stops for a moment and takes in the fact that this is somehow happening, and the scene where he regains control of the raptors and gets them to turn on the Indominus Rex still puts a huge smile on my face. And watching him assist them in the fight as their leader was also a really nice touch, and again, it felt surprisingly plausible. These movies also give us what we want, sequences in which a bunch of people get axed off by the dinosaurs, and it is great. And in Jurassic World 2, some of them had it coming, like the women. Seriously, the ladies in here practically give themselves away by screaming and alerting the dinosaurs to their presence. And at that point, it's practically bad manners if the dinosaur didn't eat them, as they were practically asking for it. And in the first movie, when the T-Rex was revealed, I was absolutely gobsmacked. I honestly couldn't believe what I was seeing. I wasn't even asking for the T-Rex to show up at this point, nor did I expect a dinosaur fight, but as I was watching, it somehow felt like I was shown something that I wanted to see for years. And every time I watched the T-Rex make his entrance and fight the Indominus, words can't describe how big a smile I had on my face. And it gives a Negasonic dino punch in the face to the 2014 Godzilla movie. I mean, those movies really need to up their game after this. And to end the movie with a climax of this magnitude is bloody genius. I did not see this ending coming at all. And the music during the scene wasn't the greatest, but it more than did its job. And unlike that one mess of a fight in Godzilla, they only focused the camera on the humans when it was necessary to enhance the experience. And the CGI in this scene is so damn beautiful. And seeing the Indominus in this grisly, bloodied up state in the end was so satisfying. And the mutual respect that the raptor and the T-Rex had was a perfect way to close out this scene. Now, a common complaint with the dinosaurs in Jurassic World is that there is too much CGI and not enough practical effects, and I wholeheartedly agree. Now, none of the CGI for the dinosaurs is bad, mind you, most of the time, but it is blatantly apparent that they aren't really there, unlike the movies prior. But the main issue that I have with the dinosaurs is that the constant nerve-wracking feeling that they are out there and could show up at any time is not here. It feels like they will only show up when the movie decides it's time for another action scene, unlike the first three films that incorporated them at the most inopportune and unexpected of moments. Now, whereas the first Jurassic World tries to be more of an action-oriented movie, Jurassic World 2 tries to build more tension like a horror film, and this leads to several great and intense action sequences. And probably the best compliment I can give the movie is that it definitely brought the horrifying nature of the dinosaurs back, which is something we haven't seen in full effect since the first movie and parts of the second. Speaking of the second, in The Lost World, the objective was to save the dinosaurs, and honestly, I didn't care for them at all. More accurately, I didn't give a shit. But in Jurassic World 2, I actually felt sorry for the dinosaurs and saw them as innocent animals. Especially that scene on the island with the death of the Brachiosaurus. That was such a well put together scene and definitely the most memorable of the movie. So I have to applaud the director, J.A. Bayona, for pulling that off. I mean, he can't direct characters very well, but credit where credit is due. He is the first to make you feel for the dinosaurs in a Jurassic Park movie. Also, the action set pieces, such as the whole underwater sequence, was done to look like one shot, and I really appreciated that. There is certainly a lot of skill and craft that went into all of these action scenes, and they really paid off in the end. However, creating another dinosaur is just repeating what they did in the last film. Now, I didn't mind it too much, as they actually used it to great effect in the last quarter of the movie, but I can completely understand if people take issue with this, as it's essentially the same dinosaur we got from the first Jurassic World, just smaller. Now, in Jurassic World 2, there were some scenes with the dinosaurs that just didn't make sense. The one that stands out is this scene with the erupting volcano. The first part made sense as the dinosaurs are running away from the fire and its projectiles, but then this one decides to stop running for its life and have a snack. I mean, animals have a survival instinct, and if fire and projectiles are rapidly coming after them, they just keep running. They won't suddenly think,
It's dinner time, and we ain't got no stinking entrees.
So this one tries to eat them, but then the T-Rex shows up and pins it down with his teeth, and then just casually walks away. I mean, what the hell was that about? It didn't even try to eat the dinosaur, nor did it try to eat our characters, so why did the T-Rex go out of its way to pin it down? This scene makes no sense, and if you were to cut it from the movie, you wouldn't even know it was taken out. Now, Jurassic World 2 makes use of much more practical dinosaur effects, and they look really good. Even when the dinosaurs are CGI, they looked great too, and much better than they did in the first Jurassic World. We get a couple of stinkers, such as this one, but for the most part, the dinosaur effects were solid. The one real issue I have with them, however, is that they kill people, but you don't really see them doing much eating. They come off more like serial killers from a slasher movie rather than man-eating monsters. That being said, out of the two films, the dinosaurs and their overall utilization was much better handled in the first Jurassic World. Yes, they look more real in Jurassic World 2. Yes, they are much more horrifying, but they don't serve much of a purpose. In fact, a lot of their scenes feel forced. A dinosaur is trying to eat our characters despite the fact that a volcano is erupting. Why? Just so the T-Rex could show up and look cool. Blue is injured, so what do our characters do? Extract some blood from a T-Rex. Okay, that's pretty random. Why did they have to do that? Well, because we haven't had an action scene in a while, and the movie wanted to give us one with a T-Rex. You see what I mean? There are a lot of scenes like this that you could ultimately cut from the movie and it would make no difference to the characters or story. In the first Jurassic World, the dinosaurs got their time to shine as the film went on, and by the end of each scene, it felt like piece by piece they broke through the park's security and got closer to leaving. It also felt like our characters actually went through something and every encounter shaped them in some way, whereas in the second movie, you could have easily cut a bunch of these scenes out and it wouldn't have made any impact on their progression or character development. It just would have been one less dinosaur scene, and honestly, that's just inexcusable. You need to give relevance to these scenes, but unfortunately, 75% of them don't have any. So that's why the movie that utilizes the dinosaurs far more effectively is Jurassic World 1. Now, the music alone is one of the biggest things that made the original Jurassic Park the well-renowned success it was and still is today. So having said that, how do the two Jurassic World movies compare? We'll start with the first one. Now, a lot of people complain about the first Jurassic World soundtrack, saying it flat out sucks, and I personally don't understand why, because I thought it was pretty good. I mean, it doesn't hold a candle to the John Williams original, but when compared to the rest of the lackluster music we have in most movies nowadays, this one was clearly trying harder, and to an extent, it succeeded. For one, it gives the movie its own identity while simultaneously harkening back to the original soundtrack every now and then to remind you that this is all taking place in the same world as the previous movies. For example, one of the best scenes where it utilizes the original soundtrack is when we get our first entire view of the park. And as the original music comes to a close, it slowly transitions itself into the new Jurassic World soundtrack. It even managed to squeeze a little of the Lost World in there too. And I like how the movie makes a conscious effort to strategically separate itself from the signature music the franchise is known for without snobbishly reinventing it. It very gently, naturally, and cathartically transitions from the original music to the new one. And it did this so well that I cannot praise it highly enough. And trust me, if it did it arrogantly with no sense of care, I would notice. The music did falter in some scenes though. For example, when Claire and Owen are keeping this dinosaur company in his final moments, it's meant to be an emotional scene. Not just for the dinosaur, but also for Claire, who for the first time sees dinosaurs as more than just numbers on a spreadsheet. And the actors are doing a great job, the scene is well shot, but the music is just nothing. This is supposed to be one of those moments where the music helps drive the scene and deliver the emotional punches, but it does nothing. Steven Spielberg said that 50% or more of a film's success comes from the soundtrack, and he is 100% right, as so many iconic scenes from film history have come from next to no dialogue, just visuals and music, and when done right, they are always considered the highlights of a movie. Unfortunately, this scene has the visuals, but it didn't have the music, and without it, this scene comes off as underwhelming and a wasted opportunity. On the whole though, I thought the soundtrack was good, but I would never call it great. As for the music in the second film, whenever there is a quiet, horrific, or intense moment, the music does its job very well. But anytime it tries to incorporate very loud music, it just doesn't fit. I mean, if this was a random monster movie, then it would be a perfect fit, but it doesn't work at all for a Jurassic Park film. There are also times where the music just comes out of nowhere, like right here. This is actually a decent joke, but I wasn't able to take it in because as well as the scene's horrendous pacing and editing, you are immediately bombarded with the super loud and out of place soundtrack which just overrules the whole joke and leaves you questioning the film's underwhelming soundtrack. And then later on, it ineffectively and tastelessly tries to incorporate the classic John Williams music, and it didn't work at all. The first Jurassic World naturally incorporated John Williams' theme at the right moments, but Jurassic World 2 felt like it didn't have a clue how to use it. And this couldn't be more evident than during the end credits. When the first Jurassic World ended, the classic John Williams music worked and made perfect sense to use during the movie's ending, as tonally, it was a perfect match. But when the second movie ended and used an upbeat version of the theme, not only didn't it fit, but it actually went against the tone of the ending that the movie spent so long putting together. I mean, imagine if at the end of Infinity War, the end credits used the Happy Avengers soundtrack. It wouldn't fit, and it would actually leave you feeling emotionally confused. So it very smartly used a tragic soundtrack which played throughout the entire end credits, and it kept you feeling the way you did when you saw the final scene. This is what Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom should have done, but it didn't. Music can either make or kill a movie, and in Jurassic World 2's case, it severely damaged it. Seriously, Universal, hire John Williams back. His music is so special and brings so much to a movie that it practically transforms it. And heck, it would even make me overlook some of the film's issues because the overall experience would have overshadowed them. But unfortunately, that isn't the case. So the music in both of these films doesn't hold a candle to the John Williams original, but out of the two, the first movie has a much better soundtrack. It's interesting how both of these movies feel like they are made with completely different ambitions behind them. The first movie clearly felt passionate and gave us many things we have always wanted to see in a modern Jurassic Park movie, whereas the second film just feels like the writers made it purely for the money. Not to mention that the first movie used corporate practices as social commentary, whereas Jurassic World 2 uses it, much like the bad guys, as a means to financially capitalize and bank on the popularity of dinosaurs. It also has a ridiculous amount of references to the first two Jurassic Park movies, and apparently there are a ton more that I missed. And to top it off, I don't get why Universal spoils so much of Jurassic World 2 in the trailer. Movie studios usually do that when they fear a movie is going to be unsuccessful, but the first Jurassic World made over $1 billion. It's a safe bet that a ton of people are going to see the sequel, so why they decided to spoil all the major plot points and set pieces is beyond me. Thankfully, that isn't the case with the first Jurassic World. It was doing a lot of new stuff, as well as redoing some of the old stuff in a way that felt unique and different, and it all went along at a very nice pace. My only issues with it is that the tension really needed to be amped up. Then I would have given this film a 9, or even a 10. But as is, my score isn't even an 8. It's a very, very strong 7 out of 10. And Jurassic World 2 gets an above average 6. And keep in mind that I have only seen Jurassic World 2 once, and I have a feeling that if I watched it again, it would possibly go down to a 5. Now having said that, it didn't completely shit the bed like The Last Jedi, where I couldn't care less what happens in the next movie. But still, the execution could have been so much better. Even so, I am genuinely curious to see what happens next. I just don't think waiting 3 years for the next movie is a good idea. Much like Avengers Infinity War, they really should have shot both movies back to back and released them a year apart from each other, because I will most likely move on and lose interest for the sequel by the time it comes out. So that's it for another Versus video. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't already, feel free to subscribe. And as always, don't forget to share this video so even more people will be aware of the show. Thanks as always for watching, guys, and I will see all of you next time. Take care.